Take it away.
Okay, welcome everybody. We are so lucky to have two BSOS alum here today to talk about the process of starting your consulting career. And so, Adriana, why don't you introduce yourself? And I know that we're waiting for our other presenter, but just let us know how you got started and anything that you want to share with the group about what they might need to do to set themselves up for a career in consulting.
Yeah, of course. And I think perfect timing because I see Rahila connecting as well. Hey, Rahila, how's it going?
Rahila.
Hi, everyone.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
We just got started and are doing introductions, so I'm just going to turn it over to you.
All right, great. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Rahila, and I graduated from the University of Maryland in 2020, studied economics and international relations, and I've been at the firm now for almost a year and a half. It's been super exciting. I'm officially aligned to the New York office, but I work with teams across the US, given, our virtual work environment. And really excited to chat with you all and talk a little bit more about my experiences later on in the session.
Awesome. Thank you, Rahila. And I'm, while you, let me know if you're able to get slides up, or we can keep it no slides, whatever works. But it's a pleasure to meet you all. I apologize for a little bit of the lighting issue. My room is undergoing some renovation, so apologies in advance. But it's a pleasure to meet everyone. I am Adriano, so I'm a consultant, which is just one level above analyst. And so I've been with the firm for about 2.5 years now. So I joined, fortunately or unfortunately, right before the pandemic hit. And I've primarily spent my time within the financial services industry. I graduated from UMD in 2019, so I have a dual degree in finance and econ, and spent a lot of time in tidings and econ classes and in the BSOS world. And I was also part of a few social innovation programs at UMD, which I'm sure undergo lots of change and nomenclature changes all the time. But that was my home at UMD.
Awesome. Would it be possible to make one of us a co-host so that we can share screen?
Can you do that, Gabe?
Okay, awesome.
There we go.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. And let me show, we are also asking students, if that's okay, Gabe and Rhonda, if they like to check in using this QR code. This just helps us keep track of who's interested in events, and if you'd like to learn more about a career in Deloitte and Deloitte consulting, all of the above, we're happy to invite you to more events that we have, and we usually hold our recruiting season in the fall, so we'll make sure that you stay tuned in preparation for that event or for that recruiting season.
Great.
But we can show this after the event as well. Awesome. Well, I wasn't expecting to drive, so let me know, Rahila, you had a different, terms of speed or slide where, but we just present ourselves. Rahila, I don't know if you want to go into more of your bio, but I'm happy to kind of kick us off with giving an overview of what consulting is and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'll add to my bio, when I was on campus, I was super involved. I really enjoyed participating in different clubs. I served as student body vice president in our SGA, and I was super involved with the Dean Student Advisory Council in BSOS. So I worked closely with Catherine Russell and many professors in BSOS to create some new minors and academic programs on campus. At Deloitte, I focus mainly in our TMT sector, which stands for telecom, media, and technology. A lot of my clients are software companies in the West Coast, and I primarily work on strategy engagements. I think that's a good overview. Andy, feel free to go to the next slide.
Yeah, of course. And then maybe I'll add too, since you mentioned the industry that you work, I've primarily also been in the firm's what we call newest ESG space. So really helping our clients tackle issues that are important to our generation and society. So things like climate change, health equity, sustainable living, et cetera. So I'm happy to take any questions if anyone is interested in that space. I'm sure Rahila would also be glad to take questions on TMT.
Yep.
Awesome. But yes, I can go to the next page.
All right, awesome. So during our conversation together, we want to try to touch on all of these different topics. We'll start off with what is consulting? For those who are unfamiliar with the field, why is consulting exciting? Why should you be interested in pursuing a career in consulting? We'll jump into what does consulting look like at Deloitte, and what are the desired skills that recruiters and interviewers are looking out for? And then finally, we'll top things off with what our journeys look like to get to consulting at Deloitte. And we'll chat about casing 101 resources, pretty much things you can be doing now to prepare for a case interview if you do want to pursue consulting. All right, I think we're good to hop to the next slide.
Cool. So probably, first question that comes to mind when you hear the word consulting is, what is consulting? And I'm happy to give you my interpretation of a consulting, which I know can be a word that's often used in lots of different settings. There's tech consulting, there's risk consulting, there's economic consulting, which is super different. In the most layman terms possible, the best way I can describe consulting, at least what Rahila and I do, is the art and science of solving complex business problems. And in the most simplest form, it's essentially we serve as trusted advisors to the clients that hire us to help them answer really tricky business questions that they may not either have the expertise to solve themselves, may not have time to fully think it through, or just need a second opinion. Now that's very buzzwordy and maybe too high level. And so what that could look like is really some descriptions on the right side of the slide here, which essentially outlines a few of the activities that a consultant can or is often tasked with. So for example, it can be conducting analysis of some business data to draw insights and to draw a conclusion from it. It can be researching and benchmarking our clients' competitors. It can be designing an organizational process and governance bodies. It can even be conducting interviews to really get to the core of the issue of, why is your company or a client experiencing a certain issue? And I think what's cool about consulting and the magic of the space is, and one of the reasons why I gravitated towards the industry in the first place, is the fact that no project and no day looks the same in consulting. One day, my project is around helping a bank create a cybersecurity program from scratch and help protect their data from cyber attacks. And literally the next week is helping a soccer federation with their sustainability strategy. And so the consulting is an incredibly, or rather the profession can be an incredibly rewarding industry for that exact reason, because it allows you to have so many different experiences and really be in the room of those conversations when these, incredibly influential companies are deciding what to do in the future. There's also a ton of other reasons why you may want to join consulting. I can pass it to Rahila to talk a little bit more about, what are some of the popular reasons why students go into consulting?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll give you all a second to digest what's on the screen here. We have a dozen reasons to enter consulting. 3 that are my favorite from this slide right here are: one, you build pretty marketable skills that you can take anywhere; two, the learning curve truly never ends; and three, you're exposed to many industries. So starting off with the first one I mentioned, marketable skills. One of the top things that you'll learn on the job is how to speak to an audience in a persuasive and engaging manner while also showing empathy. Many times we are either presenting complex things to our team members or to C-suite level executives on the client side. And that can be really daunting at first, but it's a skill that we do so often that over time, eventually you get a little bit better at it. Apart from building your presentation skills, consulting is also an excellent place to hone your data analysis skills. And that includes quantitative and qualitative data. Usually when we think of data analysis, we think of crunching numbers, but there's a big part of it that also has to do with understanding nuances in interviews when you're speaking to different customers or speaking to various competitors. Secondly, what I love most about consulting from this screen here, the learning curve truly never ends. When you're on the job, you're jumping from project to project. This might involve jumping into different industries, a whole new company, and the problems that are at hand are always very different. You're going to have to quickly ramp up and become smart on not only the company's background and product line, but the unique problem that they're facing at that very moment. And then lastly, that ties into the third reason I really love from this slide. You're going to be exposed to many different industries and many different sectors in general. If you're someone that is already very excited about the business world, this is a really cool opportunity to explore different parts of business and figure out what you might be most enthusiastic about. But also, if maybe you're not already excited about business and you're just curious about how the world works, consulting helps you put the puzzle piece together of how the public sector and the private sector interact, and what's needed from various parts of our economy to make things work. So those are a few things that I really like. Andy, anything to add on your end?
No, actually, it's funny. I think I would say those are my top 3 reasons as well. I think it's fitting that you and I both graduated from the BSOS school, and we are now both consultants, and we both are doing completely different types of work. I think it just shows the variety and the diversity of experiences and projects, and the path is never the same in consulting, which I think is something that I gravitated towards and really appealed to me. And I know it's a huge selling point of why people join this industry in the first place.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into the next slide.
Awesome. And I think I'm taking this one, right, Rahila?
Yep.
This one is this might add too much confusion, but essentially Deloitte is a massive firm and it's structured its go-to-market strategy and lots of different ways that it has skinned the cat to best help our clients solve its problems. So we're hired by a lot of different companies and a lot of different organizations and nonprofits and even the government in the public sector to help them solve their issues. But the plus side here, that also means that there's always an opportunity to gain a different experience and flex a different muscle of your expertise and your background at the firm. So I come from a traditional business background, which had me gravitate a little bit more towards the strategy component of our firm. But as you can see here, there's a ton that we do. There's human capital, there's mergers and acquisitions, there's enterprise performance, which at this point may sound like buzzwords, but it's essentially different parts of how a business lives and functions and creates impact in the world. And we come at very different ends of the whole spectrum. I'm sure Rahila had vastly different experiences that I've had in college as well. And we're both in the same firm and within the strategy, probably working on very similar problems, which I think is interesting to show how wide the net can be casted, but can also have a small world where we can still partake in, the same stories and share client, stories.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I'd add to that is, like Andy mentioned, there's so much that the firm does. And this is one grouping that's used in our consulting practice, to kind of categorize how we operate in the marketplace. So coming in as an analyst, you're typically aligned to one of these portfolios, but there's a huge focus on giving you freedom and flexibility to explore the different portfolios. So I came in under strategy and analytics. I have colleagues that came in under customer and marketing, but I've worked on customer and marketing cases. I've worked on mergers and acquisition cases. You're really given a lot of flexibility as an entry-level analyst in your first couple of years at the firm to explore all that it has to offer. All right, I think we're ready to jump to the next slide.
Awesome.
All right, so here we have a sample week in the life of an analyst. As you can see, it's a lot to take in at the moment. So I'll give you a second to just kind of glance at what we have on the screen here. We've kind of tried to create a sample of, what your journey could look like as an analyst in an average week. Of course, everyone's job looks very different, or everyone's week, everyone's day looks very different at the firm. But to start off your day, you can expect to, get in touch with your team on the project at hand, provide a status update to your manager. Typically, teams will consist of at least one analyst, like me, a consultant, like Andy, a manager, and so on. In this hybrid work environment that we have, a lot of our syncs, team meetings, occur virtually. But sometimes teams might meet in person as well, and I'll chat about that in a little bit. After you come together as a team and provide some type of status update, you might then engage with your client through a series of meetings. Perhaps you're conducting some type of client interview to learn more about their business problem at hand, or you're simply updating them on the progress your team has reached thus far. And the next thing that you'll see here, the Monday 5 p.m. write-up we have there, that one's interesting because while you're, going through your day, you might also be signed up for one of the firm's many training programs. So this one here highlights the Strategic Growth Transformation Bootcamp. I actually helped to lead that training. I took it a few months coming into the firm, and it's where we teach people core strategy concepts that the firm has helped to develop over many years. So it's not uncommon that, after your client work, you'll be participating in some type of training to help you upskill and, really be sharp on the job. And then the rest of the graphic here just follows different activities in the day of the life of a consultant. There might be some travel involved. Because we are hybrid, one of the things that our teams like to do nowadays is co-locate. So you will primarily work virtually, but depending on the team you're on, your manager might propose for everyone to come together in one of the firm's offices. So as an example, I recently flew out to Austin, Texas, and my team worked out of the Deloitte Austin office. During working hours, we were, busy working on our client deliverables, but in the mornings and evenings, we took advantage of our time together. And we did some really fun stuff. Things like kickboxing, Top Golf. I really enjoyed the kickboxing class in particular. And that's one of the ways that the firm is trying to bring people together, although we're primarily virtual. Andy, anything you want to add here about what your day usually looks like as a consultant?
No, I I now have learned not to mess with you unless I want to receive a kickboxing whooping. No, I think you hit the main points. My day is totally different. I am entirely virtual, and so I'm not co-locating to Austin, which is an awesome city to be in. I'm so jealous. And I'm actually in an internal project at the moment, and so I'm also not technically working on a client deliverable per se. But I'm still working on, essentially work, but the day might look different. And it's cool that you also are now leading the strategic growth training. That was actually one of my most memorable experiences at the firm. So small world.
Awesome. Really glad to know you liked that training.
Yeah.
All right. So jumping to the next slide, I'll chat a little bit more about the analyst experience, and Andy would love to, hear about your experience as well now as a consultant. So the analyst experience, when you first join the firm, you're a business analyst for your first 2 years, and then you transition into a consultant role, like Andy. We've tried to summarize 3 main pillars of what the analyst experience looks like. There's a ton of professional development, there's a priority towards well-being, and there are lots of opportunities to participate in social impact. So starting off with professional development, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you're learning a lot on your project teams. Your managers are very nurturing towards helping you get up to speed on different things. But beyond what you learn on your project team, on the job, the firm has a ton of training resources. These include live classes that you take through Zoom sessions, but they also include self-paced material. So to give you some insight, I didn't really know how to build a financial model before coming in as an analyst. I studied economics and international relations. And although I did do a little bit of Excel work on some class projects, it wasn't anything close to the complexity that I execute now. And so I really was able to build that skill through the resources at the firm. And now I primarily am the financial modeling person on a lot of my projects. So that's a really great resource or opportunity that the firm provides. When it comes to well-being, the firm takes a lot of priority here through investing in a number of different programs and subsidies. You'll see at the very bottom of this column, there's an annual well-being subsidy of $1,000. And that's a really major investment, that Deloitte is making in every single person that works at the firm. People have taken advantage of that in a variety of ways. Gym memberships, gaming systems, sports equipment, really anything that fulfills your outside of work activities. And I think the last thing to touch on here is social impact. I think a lot of us are becoming more aware that it's important to be involved citizens, and Deloitte really tries to assist with that. So there are a lot of pro bono opportunities at the firm. I participate in a program called Inspire. Inspire is a nonprofit that connects consultants with other nonprofits to deliver pro bono work. So I've worked with 2 nonprofits in the education sector on things like pricing strategies, staffing scenario analysis. And those are usually projects you take on in your free time, but in your extra time, but they're super fulfilling. So Andy, anything to add to this, any insight now that you're a consultant? You feel like the experience is pretty similar?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. 2 pieces that I would add in terms of, one, specifically on the social impact component, but also on the professional development piece, is there is a space in the firm, and this is I suppose a plug for the type of work that I do, where yes, you can get involved outside of your typical client work, like Rahila does, in terms of getting involved in Inspire. It's an awesome organization. You should look it up. You can also, if you're interested, use social impact as the core aspect of your client work. And so there's a ton of new opportunities, especially nowadays with development of COP26 and the Paris Agreement in 2015, and this urgency of business to take a more active role in helping solve a lot of our fundamental human challenges. There's also a lot of opportunity for you as an analyst and myself as a consultant to be involved as part of that effort, to help our clients think about how can we use our business, use our platform, and our role as an institution to help solve those problems.
Yeah.
And the second piece I'll add on the professional development, and sorry, Rahila, this is the piece that I personally am super interested in, is this huge amount of resource that's put into upskilling and boot camping you to make sure that you get as much as you can out of your experience at the firm. And if you think about the model of consulting and a firm like Deloitte, we don't sell products, we don't make widgets. Our number one product is our people, right? And so our firm wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the amazing talent and amazing people that we hire, train, and retain. And so, yes, there's a lot of emphasis put on professional development, but it's also a business imperative for our firm to make sure that, one, we're having fun, right? And we want to stay at the firm, but also that we're learning more and that we're contributing more to this firm.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really love how you phrased that. One quick question for you, Andy. Do you mind explaining to us what ESG stands for?
Yes. Yeah. Excellent question. I'm realizing the terminology is still maybe not as widespread as I would like it to be personally. ESG stands for environmental and social governance. So it's essentially a concept that aims to describe everything that a company does that has an impact on our society, either in our environment, right? So through emissions, through waste, water usage, etc. But it also aims to describe its impact that it has on the communities that it serves, the people that it hires, the diversity of its members, of its leadership team. Is the company governed in such a way that it's creating positive impact in the world, as opposed to just making the world a worse place? And so that's what ESG aims to explain and conceptualize.
All right, awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. All right, Andy, feel free to take this one.
Awesome. And so, similar note to the professional development component of the analyst experience, there's also a huge investment put into your ongoing education. And so you see in the slide here that there's essentially two options in terms of what a typical consulting career path looks like, right? So most people start at the analyst level, get promoted to consultant, and then come at this fork on the road where they can either choose to continue at the firm, what we call a continuous career path, which is you pursue a promotion, you pursue, if you're interested in staying at the firm, you pursue a career without an advanced degree, or you can apply for GSAP, which is our graduate assistance program, essentially a scholarship that pays fully for your degree, either an MBA or a similar advanced degree with Deloitte's money, essentially. And the only caveat is that you return to the firm for 2 years and your entire school is paid for, which I think is an awesome opportunity to have, especially now with the rising prices of tuition and going to college again. And it's free money if you're interested in staying at the firm. And I think is an opportunity that showcases the firm's investment in continuing to train and upskill its employees.
Yeah, I really love that, Deloitte offers this GSAP opportunity. It's quite unique. I don't know too many employers that would be willing to fund graduate study. And we should mention as well that GSAP is primarily or traditionally for MBA degrees, but the firm also sponsors masters in STEM fields such as data science, and also masters that are more related to government and international development. So it's a really exciting resource at the firm.
And to make that point more explicit, I even have a few colleagues of mine who have pursued JDs as an example. We also see a lot of public policy masters. And so, yes, traditionally it's focused on the MBA experience, so a master's in business administration. But I've seen tons and tons of times of people making a case for why they believe, their MPP or their MPH, or Masters of Public Health, should be paid for. And if you can make the case for it, the firm is happy to pay for it.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
All right. So with this slide, if we've gotten you excited about consulting at all, hopefully we have, if we're doing our job right. We want to now talk about what it takes to, get into the interview room. So when framing your resume, there are 4 key things to highlight. And these are, the type of skills that recruiters and interviewers are looking for. The first is, do you have a history of achievement in your various involvements, whether they were class projects, jobs on campus or internships? Are you able to really effectively communicate how you took initiative, how you were essential to the overall outcome that was reached? Secondly, do you have any proven leadership? Do you have examples of when you were the first to raise your hand and step up and initiate something? Are you able to take complex, ambiguous issues and think about new solutions? Third, of course, ability to be a team player. I think this one is really important no matter where you go. But for all of our projects as consultants, we're primarily working in teams. You're always going to have a partner. So you need to be able to be someone that is, able to work with others, able to listen to the opinions of others, and extend empathy. And then finally, the fourth area here, are you naturally curious? Are you the one that's always asking questions? Do you love to dig deeper? That's definitely a skill that, will be looked for and something that's super encouraged on the job. In total, when thinking about these 4 different areas, I also just want to mention, you don't have to have a business internship in order to be a good candidate for the job. As you can see, these are all, types of skills that you can really develop anywhere. Consulting is really open to people that are coming from various academic backgrounds. We have people that majored in Spanish, in engineering, in biology, tons of different backgrounds. But really what everyone is looking for is, along the way, along your journey, have you been able to develop skills here, and can you communicate them, in succinct examples that really bring your story alive? Andy, anything you would add here?
No, I would even double down on that point. None of these qualities and skills, and this is by design, by the way, speak to having a business exclusive experience. In fact, I would even argue many of these qualities can really very easily be demonstrated by other non-business experiences. For example, I know a coworker of mine who used to be very into politics and international relations. And so even an internship on, let's say, Capitol Hill can show a recruiter that you have, strong interpersonal communication skills. You have the professionalism that it takes to conduct yourself in front of a client in a business setting. Or have the desire to learn more about how to solve really complex problems. And at the end of the day, I think it's all about how you frame your experience and how you speak to your experiences, because consulting doesn't discriminate to business majors only and to business experiences only. It's actually part of our business model to bring as many different folks from different types of backgrounds, academic, whatever the case may be, to help solve problems. And in research even goes as far as showing us that when you have different people in the room working on the same problem, the more variety of thinking and experience that you have, the easier it is to solve those problems. And so it's also part of our model to recruit and to hire from as many diverse places as we can.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so moving on to the next slide, we're gonna chat a little bit about our individual journeys from campus to Deloitte. Andy, do you wanna kick us off?
Yeah, and maybe before we get started, I just wanted to say, I wish I was on campus now, right? I would love to see all of your faces and chat. And I'm personally super over this whole Zoom working online environment. And trust me, you're not the only one who scrolls through Instagram on a boring meeting or something that you're not meant to contribute. But I'm hoping that if you feel comfortable, of course, if you have a question, feel free to put in the Zoom. If you're one of the bold ones to go off video and ask a question, I don't bite usually. I'm usually more of the smooth talker variety. And so it just makes it easier. As much as I like hearing myself talk, I'd love to hear from students and from you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to go for it. But maybe Rahila, maybe we can start with you, and then I can follow on your story.
Yeah. So let's see. I first learned about consulting during my freshman year on campus. My brother was at UVA, and he was in his senior year. He was about to graduate, and he was interviewing with different consulting firms. So I pretty much just followed his journey and asked him a whole bunch of questions. Why are you interested in consulting? How are your interviews going? And that's how I learned about consulting from the very beginning. I did make sure to still explore a lot of different areas that I was interested in, just to kind of pressure test and make sure that consulting would, be the right fit for me. So as an econ major and also someone who doubled in government and politics, I've always been very interested about, our society and issues pertaining to economic development. So a lot of my internships early on were focused on the public sector. I interned with nonprofits. I interned with professors who were doing policy related research. And I was really super involved on campus in policy related clubs, such as Student Government Association. What really was the pivotal moment for me was going through my coursework and realizing that, if I'm really interested in economic development, I have to remember that a big part of our economy has to do with business activity. And I started to get more curious about how can we, create connections between the private sector and public sector to perhaps drive efficiency in how we're delivering public goods or how we're creating job opportunity. So with that thought in mind, I started to really drill down on my consulting preparation and, think about the industry more. And I would say that my experiences have kind of reflected what, I was thinking about early on. As far as what my interview process looked like and when I decided to finally apply to the firm, the summer before my senior year, I actually interned in economic consulting with a firm called Analyst Group. Wanting to try it out since I studied economics in undergrad, decided it wasn't the right fit for me. So, I applied summer going into senior year, and I also had my interview at that time. Well, closer to the fall, I had my interview. So that's what my experience would look like in a nutshell. As you can see already from my journey, it wasn't filled with a bunch of business internships, although those are very helpful. But I really wanted to bring to the table, different experiences and make sure that this would be the field for me.
That's awesome. Well said. I'm happy to, mine is maybe not as sentimental as yours or as impactful as yours, but I think goes to a similar or follows a similar thread where I originally, having studied finance and econ, thought that a career in banking was something that I was really interested in. And I very quickly learned, fortunately or unfortunately, through some experiences that I had through internships and otherwise, that the problems that finance or these silo, at least in my opinion, silo locations or sectors are solving, for me, were limiting and were left me wanting more and left me learning, or left me yearning to learn more about what it means to be, a young professional and what it means to take my education from UMD and use it in a way that helps the world be a better place. And so similar to Rahila, I had an internship my junior year where I was at a bank and I thought that was going to be it, and, found my job and was going to sign my return offer and be there and, have my career path and life path all settled for me. But I decided to not take my return offer and instead go through the recruiting process and find an opportunity and a career that more closely aligned to my interests and my values, and allowed me to use my skills in a way that helped others and at least in my case specifically within the climate or the ESG space, help clients as a business and as a social institution solve our fundamental problems of our human race. So that was my path, but very similar to Rahila, also interviewed in the fall, and there's a pretty specific and rigid, Rhonda, to your point, interview process, which I all recommend you to look into and to attend the event next week and to get a sense of what to expect, because it is not your typical interview process. And we have a few resources to help you think through and help you prepare for it. But if a career in consulting is something that excites you and is something that you're interested in, highly recommend you stay involved, stay engaged, come to our events. If you see our name somewhere on campus, show up, say hi, ask questions on Zoom, whatever that looks like to you, I encourage you to do so.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of the casing resources, I think you can jump to the next slide. So as Andy mentioned, we do have a case workshop that's happening next week. During that workshop, we'll dive even deeper into what a case looks like. I'll just give a brief overview. Casing can be very challenging because it's quite different from a typical job interview, I would say. You're going through a mock business problem with an interviewer. You're going to receive a very ambiguous problem to start off, your interview, and you're going to have to quickly think about what you just heard and deliver a concise, logical approach to answering this problem. Another thing that makes casing difficult is you're going to need to perform mental math during the interview, which is not something that a lot of us are used to, even the best, mathletes out there. So that can take some time, building that muscle and becoming familiar with, how to go through a quantitative problem under pressure. But don't be worried. Our case workshop next week should be very helpful. And we also have a bunch of resources here listed on the screen if you just want to start to explore on your own and get more familiar with what a case looks like. So the first three ones that are listed, I would say, are kind of the priority resources or the most popular out there. Case in Point is considered one of the oldest case preparation books. This will be helpful in kind of wrapping your mind around what a case is, why consulting firms give case interviews, And, it'll help you begin to consider approaches for your potential case interview. Secondly, Victor Cheng has an awesome series of YouTube videos on the internet that you can take a look at. And of course, Deloitte has a bunch of sample case interviews online. These are actually interactive, and so I definitely recommend checking those out. A couple other ones that we have here, one that dives into case interview frameworks from I Got an Offer, and then the other two that you see, Rocket Blocks and Interview Math. Those are actually some of my personal favorites. So definitely recommend looking at those. And then of course, we strongly recommend once you attend the workshop, once you begin to understand what a case looks like, it's important to find a good case partner or group over the summer and into the fall. So these will hopefully be people who are also preparing for interviews. They can be from the business school, they can be from BSOS, anywhere on campus that you can find them, and just come together, get over the initial nerves of, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to approach this, and kind of provide that camaraderie for each other as you're preparing. Andy, anything to add here?
I'll just say if that sounds awesome, lots of great resources. I myself read the Victor Cheng book because I was a nerd and loved reading about it. That was the way I learned. But if you feel overwhelmed or if you're not sure the words that we're using in terms of a case interview and rocket blocks and interview math, highly recommend you attend the casing workshop, because not only will we go over exactly what a case interview looks like, but we'll also give you an insight of what are the kinds of problems that we solve on a daily basis, and to allow you to kind of test like, hey, is this something that I'm actually interested in doing? And is this something that I'm eager to learn more and be more interested in? So that's just the plug for the event. Either next week, I'm not sure if it conflicts with your guys' events, but we also have one on Tuesday, April 19th, which is specifically for non-business. If you're an econ major or a politics major, you can attend that session as well.
Yeah, and I see we already have a question in the chat. Thank you so much, Jessica. So Jessica wants to know, what should we look for in a good case partner? Happy to start off. I would say your case partner doesn't have to be someone who is interviewing, although sometimes it can be helpful because you guys are on the same journey. But I remember leading up to some of my interviews, I asked my roommate to help me case. This should primarily be someone that can, I think, stay composed and really mimic what an interview might feel like. And you want to make sure that your case partner has read the entirety of the case before delivering it to you. They don't have to be someone from a business background, but they should at least try to internalize a little bit what the high level problem of the case is, so that they can deliver it to you effectively. Another thing that you should look for in a good case partner is someone who can, I think, deliver information to you in a way that is that doesn't give too much away, I guess is how I would frame that. In the interview room, one thing that you will find is as you're going through a case, sometimes candidates might miss the mark. They might not be truly tapped into what the problem at hand is, but the interviewer has to stay very stoic and can't really let you know that you're veering off. If you veer off too far, your interviewer will help you along, but ultimately you want a case partner that can have a little bit of a poker face, I would say, and not give away when you are going off in different directions. Andy, anything to add to that?
I would say best place to find a case partner is probably folks either on this call or honestly, the people attending one of these workshops, because it looks like they're also interested probably, right, in interviewing. And unlike And it's also, I would highly recommend you not think of other students as your competition, because honestly, the best way I prepared for my interviews was actually prepping and practicing with folks who I knew were also applying for the same position, because it just helps you, it helps them, it gets your nerves out of the way, and allows you to bring your authentic self into the interview room, as opposed to trying to focus on this weird interview system that's unlike any other that's typical of a first year analyst job.
Yeah, I think that's a really good response. Any other questions?
Hi, this is a question for Adriano a little bit more. Can you speak a little bit about the ESG development projects you're working on right now? Is it just getting companies compliant with measuring and reporting specific ESG metrics, or does it go like beyond that into like restructuring company practices and stuff like that?
That's a huge one. Yeah, measuring and reporting is really hot right now in terms of the types of problems our clients are experiencing. But a lot of our clients, you'd be surprised, some organizations are doing some awesome work and thinking about their business model and how, essentially how they make money in a totally different way. One very small example is one of projects that we worked on with an apparel company, was helping them think through how can they use manufacturing waste, right? So waste that they create from making shoes, into a whole new, brand new product line, right? And so essentially taking what would otherwise just go to waste and create, more carbon and just be a net negative in our economy, in our society, using that as a way to create new revenue streams and engage your customers in a totally new way. And so, yes, measuring, reporting, part of it, and a huge part of it, but there's also a lot of really interesting problems that we're helping them solve in terms of how can they think about their business differently.
Thank you. Makes a lot of sense.
I have another question. Thank you both for your answers before on and also the case interview resources. I was wondering if there's anything special that we should prepare for like a behavioral interview with Deloitte.
Yeah, it's a good question. When it comes to behavioral interviews, the biggest thing is you want to demonstrate impact. You're going to be asked questions that try to figure out how did you behave in certain situations. So how did you behave in a team environment? Were you ever given the opportunity to step into a leadership role or take initiative at a previous internship? And the advice that I always give students is to take on the STAR approach, which stands for situation, task, action, result. So you want to communicate to your interviewer, what was the situation at hand? What was the task that you were either assigned or that you kind of initiated? What action did you take in the face of that situation and that task? And what was the result of your actions? If you were working on a team and your team ultimately reached result XYZ, what was the specific thing that you did to contribute to that overall overarching outcome? So that I think is pretty standard to how to approach behavioral interviews. Andy, do you have anything to add there?
Not really. I think you touched on it. It's pretty typical of a traditional behavioral interview.
Oh, but actually, I guess one last thing. You might, of course, be asked, why Deloitte? So you want to think a little bit about that as well.
Very good point.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question pretty much like for both of you, I guess, like either one can answer. I heard you guys say how you guys are both like very involved on campus, and I think that certainly helps like boosting resume and stuff. So my question would be, what would your advice be for someone that may not be as involved with like different groups on campus? Would you say just try to like boost outside stuff such as internships and that sort of thing, or what would you What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that, you know, I've known different colleagues who, coming into the interview room, they primarily had extracurricular activities as, what they were speaking to from an experience standpoint. And then I also knew people who maybe they weren't really involved on campus at all. Maybe they primarily interned every semester or they had a job on campus every semester. It's not so much important what category your experiences lie under. What's really critical is just at least having one or two commitments where you've really driven impact in some way, shape, or form. Another example could be maybe you didn't have an internship or a job, or you weren't part of a club, but maybe you did a ton of research with a professor on campus, or maybe you took the lead on a lot of your class projects. As long as you can speak to impact, I think that's what is going to take priority over everything else. But Andy, would love your insight here as well.
No, I think you covered it. And I don't know if Rhonda, have a hard cutoff at 7. Oh, I think you might be on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, we're fine with the time. We can go a little bit over. The one thing that I wanted to say is that that kind of operationalizing some of the things that we're talking about, how to write a compelling resume, how to prepare, especially for behavioral interview questions. Those are some of the things that Gabe and I will be talking about next week on the 19th, and how you can do that over the summer. And it's right before the Casing 101 workshop at the Smith School. So if you want to have a consulting packed day, please sign up for that class, for that workshop. And so yeah, that's my public service announcement. And I do think that, if we can start wrapping this up, but I'm happy to stay, 5-10 minutes later.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. I asked because if any of you have additional questions, or maybe you don't feel as comfortable putting in the Zoom chat or coming off mute, feel free to email us. And also don't forget to sign in the QR code there at the bottom. I'm sure, Rahila, you're more than welcome to take student questions offline. I'm also happy to take student emails. I love responding to student emails. And so if that's something that interests you, you can find our contact information here on the screen.
And again, that's something that I really want to encourage people to do. I think often when people say, yes, I'm happy to answer an email, to give more information, so many of us don't really take advantage of that because we don't want to be a bother or a pest. Please know that our presenters here, like, they know where you're coming from. They have felt exactly what you're feeling. They had the same questions that you had, and please take them at their word, because being able to find a career that fits for you and to be successful at it means asking questions, means reaching out to people. Showing up here is a really fabulous first step, but I just want to really encourage you to take advantage of the opportunities that we're providing you at BSOS, and that our presenters are so generously offering as well. So any other questions?
Hi. First, I also want to say thank you to all of you guys at the Feller Center, because this kind of has been something I've been looking for, more consulting resources for BSOS majors. So honestly, this is so wonderful that this is being put together. I wanted to ask, as a government and politics major too, something I've been looking into exploring is GPS with Deloitte. So I'm not sure if any of you guys would have too much insight on this as commercial strategy consultants. But I mean, the Deloitte network is really huge. So would you guys have any insight into kind of how the interview process might be different between GPS teams and commercial?
Yeah, I can take that one, Raheel, unless you have GPS experience that I'm unfamiliar with. But it's very similar in terms of, the interview. You have a behavioral, you have a case. It's just that the case and the types of problems are just geared more towards the public sector, which can appeal to different strokes, right? I was someone who I knew was passionate about business as an institution, but I know a lot of folks and a lot of students are interested in consulting for the public sector and for the government, which is a different ball game, but it's obviously within all the family of Deloitte.
Are there any differences to the recruiting process as well in terms of getting new talent to GPS, if you know?
Yeah, I not personally, but why don't you shoot me an email if that's okay with you, and I can connect you with the GPS recruiter who can answer more of the details.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Yes, I noted your email down.
Awesome. Cool.
Any other questions?
Just thank you both for your time. This is a really informative presentation, and I appreciate all the passion that you guys put, that you clearly have for Deloitte. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming.
So
Thank you for your questions.
yeah, Adriano and Rahila, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience with our students. And we look forward to bringing you back, and so that our BSOS majors can continue to learn how they can succeed in this area. And again, we encourage everyone interested to please register for our workshop next week, and keep your eye out. We're going to continue to be developing consulting resources. Gabe, is there anything else that you want to say?
You said it perfectly, but I do want to just kind of reiterate, thank you, our two guests today. Definitely look forward to having you guys back, and really appreciate you guys being willing resources for our current students.
Absolutely.